The next episode of Nerd, Flicks, and Chill will start in
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi, I'm Carrie,
And I'm Nick.
and we are Nerd, Flicks, and Chill. Welcome to our third episode, once again covering Game of Thrones. Today it is Game of Thrones Episode 6, Blood of My Blood. So this episode, we start north of the Wall, right where we left off from the previous episode, with Mira and Bran.
Yeah, Mira and Bran are on the run after Hodor held the door, and we still see Bran uploading. It's kind of like he's binge watching the show, and included in his binge watch are the special features, which include some deleted scenes or scenes that were not part of the original series, like shots of the Mad King and Jaime Lannister killing the Mad King and all kinds of good stuff. What did you think of the montage?
Oh my gosh, it was overwhelming. As soon as it was happening, I knew that I was going to have to go back and try and pause to get all of the little bits because there was so much that happened so quickly. And the way I watch the show is through a Roku streaming device, and I don't have the ability to pause each little frame like somebody who has a DVR or something might be able to. So there was a lot that I didn't get. But it looked like, from what I could tell, that his first set of visions all seem to be things that we've seen before as viewers. So it was almost like you said, he was catching up. He even saw a vision of himself falling out of the tower. We saw stuff with the White Walkers. He was getting the director's cut, it seems, of seasons 1 through 4.
Yeah, he was watching the series the way I watched Breaking Bad, just kind of downloaded it all at one time.
How many seasons was Breaking Bad?
5 seasons, I believe.
So we are now at I don't remember how many episodes they had per season. I think it
I
was
think it
probably
was 13.
yeah, so it was a little bit more than Game of Thrones, but they're about neck and neck now, it seems. I don't know why it felt like Breaking Bad went on longer than Game. Anyway, I guess time flies when you're having fun. Watching Game of Thrones, that seems like it's been a lot shorter. But yeah, so he had a couple different sections of visions, and he had a second set of visions, and there was some stuff in there that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, we had some shots of the Mad King. We know it's the Mad King because we hear him yelling, "Burn them all." We see some shots of wildfire beneath King's Landing. We also see Jaime killing the Mad King. So, kind of getting that whole bit of backstory thrown right out there, which is really, really cool. And you noticed a very specific shot in that series of shots there that pertains to Ned Stark, correct?
I did. There was one of the shots that I was actually able to freeze frame on. You see Ned Stark, who we saw a couple episodes ago at the Tower of Joy, where Bran actually seemed to make connection with him. He yelled out "Father," but we know what this Ned Stark looks like, this young Ned Stark, and we see him again, and we hear him say the line, "Where's my sister?" And then we immediately cut to a shot of you see a hand and a lot of blood. And when I froze this shot, you can see the hand, some kind of a gauntlet that I'm guessing is Ned Stark's gauntlet. I couldn't tell if it's the same, but then it's obviously a female hand towards the bottom of the screen and a lot of blood. And I'm assuming that we are seeing what is up in that tower.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. It looks like this is the continuation, or at least a part of it. What I don't know is how much Bran knows. Like, is this a full download, or is he just getting literally the bits and pieces that we see? So I'm curious to see if this is kind of a newly enlightened Bran Stark, or if this is somebody who still has pieces that he needs to put together. I'm leaning towards the latter.
I really hope. Well, first of all, I was afraid that after the three-eyed raven was gone, I was afraid that maybe we wouldn't get any visions anymore. Because, the weirwood tree is gone, the three-eyed raven is gone, and Bran's just out there. Is he going to still be able to have access to this stuff? And so I was nervous that maybe we wouldn't see the continuation of the Tower of Joy. So I
And,
hope that we get more than just little snippets. I hope that somehow we are able to see a full-fledged scene of this later on.
well, well, it looks like Bran is using Wi-Fi now because he's still connected even though he's not touching the tree. So I
he's
feel
now
like we're in pretty good shape.
he's now a Wi-Fi hotspot because he's quite a bit of a distance away from his router.
You know what his password is? Hodor.
Oh, that was good. That was really good. So Mira is completely exhausted. She is not made to be a sled dog, and Bran snaps out of his vision, and he said very calmly, "They found us." And then we hear the whites approaching. A cloaked figure appears on a horse, and he says, "Follow me now, um, because the dead don't rest."
Yeah, it looks like we have a surprise, an ex machina character that shows up to kind of save the day right at the right time. It's kind of interesting the way when Bran wakes up, he tells Mira that, they found us. And I'm sure Mira's like, no shit, buddy. Um, it's just it's funny to think that Mira almost seems resigned to her fate. I don't know what Bran was thinking or what his particular headspace was at that time because it does get interrupted by our hooded rider, whose identity will be revealed in a later scene. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to come back to it later?
Let's go ahead and talk about it now.
Benjen Stark.
You were just holding it back.
I've
He's
just
just
been wanting to say it for several years now.
so Benjamin Stark, who we haven't seen since the very early episodes of season one. I think episode three was it? I mean, it was very very early in this season,
It
and
was
we
really
haven't.
early.
Yeah, we haven't seen him since then. He's got a story to tell. He's had some stuff happen to him in the past couple seasons.
What's really interesting about this is that these books, the first book came out in the 90s. So this is, 25 years since we've heard from Benjen last. And what's really interesting about that is that throughout the years, there have been all these theories, all these, all this speculation in the fan community about, well, where is Benjen? Where is Benjen? Now we know. Benjen was killed by a White Walker, kind of. But before he could turn, Children of the Forest stuck obsidian into his heart and de-zombified him. And now he's this kind of guy who's sort of alive-ish and walks between two worlds. This is a combination of Benjen and then there's another character in the book called Cold Hands who is part of this Bran storyline, who's this kind of undead uh, former Black Brother character who he rides an elk. Um, so he's this kind of merging of these two characters. So Benjen is Benjen, and Benjen is Cold Hands as well. He's both these characters, which makes a lot of book fans, I think, happy with their speculation, even though this is not the way it is intended to go down in the books.
Yeah, I read something just recently that George R. R. Martin strictly said, no, they're not the same person. But, who knows? I mean, they also said that Jon Snow wasn't coming back. So, well, the show did anyway. So you can't don't believe everything you hear. Who knows what'll happen in the books? Because if he were to say yes, that is Benjen is Cold Hands in the book, then that gives it away. So
Yeah,
I don't buy it.
I think that Benjen has a definitive backstory, whereas Cold Hands in the book also has a definitive backstory that's not the same as Benjen's. So the theory that the two are the same in the books doesn't really fly. But in the show, since they're kind of doing this economy of characters thing, they can kind of merge them into one thing. And I think it's a great choice, actually. And it's great seeing Benjen back. We've got another Stark reunion. I feel like people, when they talk about this episode, are going to bury the lead, and the lead is Benjen's back.
And it's not the first time that the show has merged characters together. And I dare I say that I have a feeling it won't be the last time. I'm guessing.
Probably not. Probably not.
I also think that Benjen knows a lot more than we are aware of because before he reveals that he's Benjen, he says that the three-eyed raven sent for him. So he leads us to believe that he's had some kind of communication with the three-eyed raven. He seems to be aware of the things that Bran has seen because when he describes to Bran what happened to him, he says, yes, had the dragon glass in there. He's like, yes, just like you've seen. So he seems to have some kind of an awareness of what Bran was being taught or what Bran was being told or what he needed to be told. So it almost seems like Benjen is kind of taking over that, I don't know, Obi-Wan, wise sage role for Benjen or for Brandon now.
Yeah, and we all know how well that worked out for Obi-Wan.
Well, and the three-eyed raven, right? So who knows where this is going to go? I'm really excited to see what happens with this storyline. Where are they going? Where are they going to go? Because he says the dead don't rest, so they can't constantly be on the run. They're going to have to take refuge somewhere.
There's not many places for them to go if you think about it. I mean, every place that we know of north of the wall has already been taken out by the army of the dead. So logically, you think he has to go to the wall. But what I'm curious about is the mark that the Night King put on him. If Bran tries to cross the wall with that mark, will that undo some of the magic in the wall that keeps the White Walkers at bay? That's my big question that I have about that. If Bran should go to the wall, like we kind of expect him to do.
But I wonder if Dragon Glass can stop the magic that was getting ready to turn Benjen into a white. If Dragon Glass can kill the White Walkers, could they sever Bran's arm with Dragon Glass? Or plunge Dragon Glass into his arm? Like maybe that's the kryptonite of the white magic, maybe?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, your guess is as good as mine on this one. I don't know that Bran wants to go down that road yet, but who
Yeah.
knows? Another thing that I've noticed is just that the show has started calling the Night's King the Night King. They've made a very conscious choice within their script to drop that S off the end. I'm not sure why. I don't know if that's to distinguish him as a show only character and distinguish him from the Night's King of the books. But then again, these could still be the same character. What we know of the Night's King is he's this kind of legendary mythical character that we only hear about in Old Nan's Tale. So who knows what his true origin is? Well, actually, I guess you could say that we know his true origin if we take as canon what Bran experienced in his vision, which I feel like carries more weight than what an old lady in Winterfell says.
That's true. But who knows? I mean, usually in those kind of morality tales, there is some truth that's in there. Because we don't know anything about the man that they plunged the dragon glass into. So
That's
who
very
knows?
true.
Our next scene that we are at is with Sam and Gilly, and they are traveling to Hornhill. And my question is, where exactly is Hornhill in the Planetos geography?
So if Dorne is Florida, then Hornhill is like maybe Atlanta ish. So it's kind of on the southwestern side of Westeros, kind of um, south of Highgarden, where the Tyrells are from, and east of Old Town, where Sam's
Okay.
going.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified that because for whatever reason, I don't know why. I guess it's because Sam and Gilly were on a ship and they seemed to be sailing for a very, very long time. I assumed that they were sailing to Essos. For some reason in my mind, I had it stuck in there that they were going somewhere around Bravos. Is where I made up my own geography. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's I think a common misconception because Old Town is somewhere that's you know, kind of untouched by all the different events that we've seen. And it's a place that we haven't seen just yet. So I think it's a common misconception that people think it's across the narrow sea. It's not. It's a little bit down south, also a little bit south of Casterly Rock as well. So if that
okay.
helps with the geography, I feel like sometimes you have to watch the show with a map. And then
Right?
it's also important to keep in mind that this is kind of a flat Earth society.
Okay.
I don't know that they've discovered yet that their planet is round, or if we've discovered that their planet is round yet.
So they're on the road heading up to Hornhill, which looks absolutely gorgeous. And Sam says he never thought he was going to come back here. You know, he kind of gives us a little bit of a history with his father. His father made him, or actually a reminder of the history with his father, because we heard this when he first went to the wall. But his father made him renounce all of his titles, made him give up his claim to everything, sent him to the wall because he's not going to be a warrior, and he just assumed that when all of that happened that he wasn't going to be coming back home and he was never going to see it or his family ever again. And Gilly picks up on the fact that he's really nervous.
Yeah, and the Tarley family is a very well established family in Westeros, a very respected family also. Randall Tarley is considered a great military mind, so much so that he's one of the only people to defeat Robert Baratheon in battle when those two came across each other. So
Oh wow.
Randall Tarley is a legit badass, but he's also a very stern man. I like to think of him as a less charming Tywin Lannister, for whatever that's worth. But that just gives you some context as to what you're dealing with. And when we do finally meet Randall Tarley, he is legitimately frightening.
Oh my gosh, I don't know who the actor is that played him, did so well. Really, really well. It was probably one of the most uncomfortable dinner scenes I have ever seen, but it was such a delight to see him do his work. It was so good from an acting standpoint. But Gilly's really kind of upset that, she discovers that Sam didn't tell his dad or his family ahead of time that she's really a wildling, what her origin is. And I like the fact that she's not, I mean, she doesn't have any need to be ashamed of what she is, but she's kind of an open book, and she doesn't understand why nobody else can accept that. It seems Sam is very, very nervous heading in to meet his family, but we meet his mother and his sister, and they are absolutely delightful.
They are. They're very, very kind people. He also has his brother Dickon, which is a great name. And they give Sam a hard time. Um, so Dickon is kind of an overachieving younger brother, which is always kind of an interesting thing. What I do love, particularly in this whole sequence about is Gilly is not restrained by social norms at all. Like the kind of respect for titles and things like that. She's not somebody who's easily intimidated, and that's what makes her so wonderful. Here's this, again, legitimate badass, Randall Tarley, you know, grilling her over being a wildling, and she's just there, sitting straight up, totally unafraid, because she has seen some shit and it does not frighten her. Randall Tarley does not frighten her. And that's what makes her so interesting because Sam gets his strength from her, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love the two of these. I think a lot of people think that any scenes with them are kind of a little dull and aren't as great as seeing, John, do his fighting and, all of the stuff that we have with the Lannisters and King's Landing. But the two of the I think the two of them are like a breath of fresh air to the show. And
Absolutely.
I find them incredibly endearing, and No, I like them, and this is probably that dinner scene is probably one of my favorite scenes with the two of them, other than their sex scene.
And can we talk about the fact that Randall Tarley has a Valerian steel sword called Heartsbane? It's so awesome.
Yeah, and he mentions it. Okay, I'm gonna back up a little bit here, actually. So they're sitting at dinner. Gilly kind of let something slip that she mentioned something about being north of the wall and traveling down south of the wall, and Randall Tarley, being the observant guy that he is, he picks up on that right away. He's like, "Wait a minute, back up. Where are you from? Where do you say that you're from?" And so he picks up on the fact that she is a wildling, and he's pissed.
He sure is. He's not very happy because, again, it's the same kind of xenophobia that we have seen towards wildlings throughout the entire series. There's somebody to be fought, there's somebody to be feared, there's somebody to be defeated. And now he's confronted with the thing he has spent so much time fighting right in his own home, thanks to his own son. And that's something that he just can't handle.
And again, just wonderful the fact that Gilly, she stands up for Sam, and she says, he's not. He's more of a warrior than either of you will ever be. He's killed a White Walker, and Sam's brother just kind of chuckles and they don't exist. And I thought that was kind of a huge understated moment. Because that tells us that, south of the north, they don't realize the threat that's looming, and they don't even realize that it's real. They just think of it as, like old Nan's tales. They just think of it as a bedtime story to frighten children. They don't see it as an actual viable threat.
Yeah, and we've seen other examples of that in the show too, the kind of southern ignorance. Southern Westeros, by the way, let me just be clear. The kind of southern ignorance um, that we have seen on display. We've seen it before when Janos Slynt is taking command of the forces at the wall, and he can't handle it because he has never seen giants or knew giants existed or knew that mammoths were out there or any of those other things. And when he's confronted with it, he's terrified. So the dynamics and perceptions of those characters are um, skewed in a way. You look at the people below the wall as a little bit more dignified, a little bit more regimented, and you would think that, well, any army that can be, raised in Westeros will have no problem defeating wildlings or anything like that. But the wildlings have seen some shit, and so have the Brothers of the Night's Watch, Jon Snow in particular, Sam as well. These guys have been hardened in a way that the rest of the people in Westeros don't quite understand.
And I think it really shows. Again, I know we mentioned this before, but it really shows in Gilly's confrontation with Sam's father. And Sam's mother, I thought, had a great moment where she just quite literally stood up and it's like, okay, we're out of here. You've disgraced yourself. I'm taking them and we're leaving, or leaving the room anyway. And Sam's father says, your mother is an incredible woman, and to make her happy, I'll keep the wildling girl here. We'll have her work in the kitchens. We'll keep the bastard son, and he'll be educated here, he'll be trained here, which goodness only knows what would become of that. And he tells Sam that's going to be his last night there. He is no longer welcome in that home because of what he's done.
Yeah, and you get the feeling that if Gilly and little Sam were to stay there, it would just be a situation where this kid would, be called a wildling bastard his entire life, and Gilly would essentially be, um, scrubbing pots and pans, and it's not. It might be safe, but it's not the life that I think Sam wants for them.
Which is exactly why he has that moment where he's with Gilly and little Sam, and he's telling them goodbye and that he has to leave by the first light of day. And he leaves the room, and it doesn't take long that he comes back, and he's like, no, this isn't right. We're supposed to be together. We're going to be together. And all right, let's pack up our things. And I don't have any things. And his next course of action is to take Heartsbane.
He sure does. This is pretty rebellious moment from the eldest son of the Tarley family. He takes Heartsbane. Now, Sam knows the value of Valerian steel in this world. It's more than just some ancestral blade that gets passed down, from father to son, generation to generation. This has tangible power in the wars to come. So Sam's like, screw it. It's not going to just sit here on some antlers. I'm taking this thing and I'm going to clean up some White Walkers at some point.
I think it's great because I think we saw the moment that Sam grew up. He grew a pair when he was at the wall. He came in, when we saw him sitting at dinner with his family, that was the same Sam that we saw when he first arrived at the wall. And it took him a little while, but he came into his own and, had the balls, I guess, to stand up to the other brothers of the Watch, where they were in their nomination process for a new Lord Commander, and he interrupted it to give the nomination to John and really stood up for himself and his friends. And when he goes back to his parents' house, he immediately reverts back to the Sam that we first met, kind of meek and quiet and nervous. And uh he just had that epiphany moment where he grew up, and he's like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm taking my woman, I'm taking our son, and I am taking the sword, and we are out of here. So I was really proud of him for that.
Me too. Don't you get the feeling that, I mean, name aside, don't you get the feeling that Sam would have been a Tolkien character?
He's totally a hobbit.
Oh, absolutely. He has that spirit and that kind of, moral compass, and it just reminds me of like a pure Tolkien character.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why I like him so much. It's my fondness for
Do you
hobbits.
do you think Randall Tarley will come after Heartsbane?
I don't know. Well, I mean, according to Sam, he can damn well try. um, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna see him again, or maybe we will. Maybe we
Yeah,
will see him, and he'll see Sam in a different light. Maybe something will happen, and I honestly
yeah,
don't know.
it's hard for me to speculate on this one too. I'm really not sure where this plot line's going to go. I think we have not seen the last of Randall Tarley. Maybe for this season, I'm not sure, but I guarantee you that's one ugly mug that we will see again. And I hope we do, because as I'm watching him, I'm kind of like, you know, I need to see this guy kick some ass because he looks tough, and we need some tough dudes here.
Well, and if anything, too, just for the performance from that actor, I really want to see more from him. So I
Yeah,
will
he
say
was in
yes.
Downton Abbey.
Was he?
Yeah, he was in Downton Abbey, I think, yeah. Playing a very similar role, but that's just
Oh.
kind of what I've heard. I don't know Downton Abbey very well.
And I've watched all of Downton Abbey, and I don't remember. Oh, I'm terrible. Wow.
Shame. Shame.
Thank you. So let's see. Our next location that we haven't touched on yet is King's Landing. There's a lot going on at King's Landing.
Did you hear my sigh of discontent?
I did. So we have a scene where we've got the High Sparrow and Tommen are talking, and they're talking about Marjorie's walk that's going to be happening, and Tommen is very concerned for her, because he heard about what happened to his mom, and he doesn't want that to happen to his wife. And it just, the High Sparrow is just really playing Tommen. he's playing that fatherly role that Tommen hasn't had. He's just falling right into it.
He sure is. He's proving to be very easily manipulated, and this comes from the direct result of just never having any strong influences.
The High Sparrow asks Tom if he would like to see Marjorie, so he gives him the opportunity to go and see her. I'm really trying to figure out this scene between Marjorie and Tommen. I think she is just trying to feel him out.
It certainly seems that way. All of her questions are very open ended. It's like, he wasn't the man we were expecting, was he? And, just kind of these very open ended questions trying to get a feel for what Tommen's answers were. And then she kind of goes off on this little soliloquy about, you know, pretending that she was good instead of actually being good and that kind of stuff. And you get the sense that Marjorie has now accepted the faith, but I just don't buy it.
Yeah, because when we last saw her, she was with her brother, and he was pleading with her just to make it stop. I'd mentioned in our last episode that you could barely hear it, but she does actually say, "All right." And so, you think that she's going to come up with some kind of a scheme just to make it stop. And I guess the only way that she could do that is to kind of play along and make it seem as if she's been reformed.
Honestly, to me, um, Marjorie is keeping this storyline interesting. And I feel like the real chess game that's happening here is between her and the High Sparrow and nobody else, because everybody else is just not able to step up and be up for the challenge.
Yeah, and even when we go back to King's Landing and we're at the steps of Baelor, and we see Marjorie standing there, that she's getting ready to do her walk, and it gets a little interrupted. But what plays out after that, it makes me think too that makes you wonder: is she playing along still, or is she? It's kind of she's a master manipulator. She is so good at playing and saying exactly what other people think they need to hear. But with that, yeah, so we think that she's going to have a walk and it gets interrupted. We see um, Jamie and the Tyrell army kind of gathering before they're getting ready to interrupt this walk.
Yeah, led by Mace Tyrell, who is himself being led around by a guy who's walking his horse for him, while Mace struts around with a giant peacock feather on his hat. And this whole thing is just a train wreck.
It is, and I love Jamie's subtle looks on his face as he sees Tyrell uh, prance up or Mace Tyrell prance up, and how Mace Tyrell is giving a little pep talk, and what's gonna happen, and Jamie's just kind of looking around like, okay, can we get the show on the road? We need to do this before things go down. So they finally appear and interrupt the atonement that we think is going to happen.
Yeah, and this plan is just fucked from Jump Street. Like, this is such a disaster because Jamie struts up there doing his thing. The shot of Jamie going up the steps on the horse is
Oh,
the
so
best moment of
cool.
that entire scene. And then
So
it gets
cool.
to the point where Jamie then confronts the High Sparrow and he says, "Let Marjorie and Loris go. Won't be any violence." Blah blah blah. He says that he's there on behalf of the king. High Sparrow says we don't acknowledge his authority here, and the standoff begins. Now, I had some issues with this scene, mostly
Okay.
because I was kind of expecting something that wasn't so anticlimactic because Jamie goes up the steps. He's there. He's ready to go. He's making his threats. High Sparrow says, "Nope, no walk today. We're good." Instead, Marjorie brought somebody else into the fold. And then he does this whole, like, look what's behind door number 2. And out comes Tommen Baratheon with his Kingsguard, who are wearing new armor. So
Yeah.
Jamie apparently missed the armor fitting because they all have new armor. And Jamie the Kingsguard is there, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, who did not know they were getting new armor, who seems to look really stupid in this whole scene. He looks like an idiot. This is a completely failed plan. I mean, it shouldn't come as any surprise. It's a Cersei plan, but this is a humiliating thing for not just Jaime Lannister, but for the Tyrells as well.
That's a really, really good point because I really thought that something was going to go down. I thought we were going to have some kind of violent confrontation, and we didn't get any of that. It just cut Jamie down, and Lady Olenna was there, and she didn't even have to say, she didn't have much to say at all, but her looks say it all. I thought it was a really impressive scene with just looks that were being exchanged. The look on Jamie's face when Tommen walks out and he's just in complete and utter disbelief and he's shaking his head. The High Sparrow when he turns his head to look over his shoulder down at Jamie and just gives him this massive grin. There's like, oh, I just want to throw something at my TV at him. And then, you know, the looks exchanged between Jamie and Lady Olenna, and then Lady Olenna and Mace Tyrell. And Mace Tyrell is like, what is happening? I actually thought it was really well done and very well edited and cut together. And there's a one little moment when you see the Tyrell army where they're kind of presenting their arms, where you can kind of see Marjorie get a little smirk on her face. And I think with that little smirk, it leads me to believe that she is just playing along, that she's just playing them like a fiddle. But what is her I'm curious to know what her next move is going to be after this. Is she going to get herself so caught up in it that she's not going to be able to get out of it? That she's going to have to just continue to play along and she gets her brother out and then they run away like Sansa and Theon out of King's Landing? I don't know what's going to happen with them.
Well, Cersei's the one who kind of started this whole thing with, arming the faith militant, and it's just been an ever escalating situation ever since. And where you have people like Jamie and Cersei and Lady Olenna that are trying to plan an end game with the High Sparrow. You actually have Marjorie who's doing the opposite. She's actually escalating this higher and higher and higher. I think how she's playing it is really interesting. I think that's the most interesting aspect of this particular storyline because I felt like this was a bit of a letdown given all of the elements that were in place.
It's just because you wanted to see her do a walk.
I do not oppose watching a Natalie Dormer walk of shame scene. Sorry. I make no apologies. So why
No,
did
and
I
you shouldn't
apologize? Never
because
mind. What are we talking about? On to the next topic.
oh, next. So after Tommen gives his little speech saying, you know, we're going to unite um, the sparrows and the crown together, and the people of King's Landing are all on board. They're cheering. They're very happy that this is happening. And so then we cut to the throne room and see the Iron Throne that we have not seen in what, a season or two? When was the last time?
2 seasons.
Two
Tyrion's
seasons.
trial was the last time we saw the throne room.
So we see the Iron Throne, and Tommen is sitting upon the Iron Throne. Kevin Lannister, his hand is standing right next to him. Uh, I have no idea if he's on board with all of this, but he's dutifully playing his role. We have Tommen confronting Jamie, and it seems like for the first time, Tommen is acting like a king.
He's acting like a puppet that somebody else is pulling the strings for. I
Yeah.
don't know what Kevin Lannister thinks of this particular situation, but Jamie Lannister is getting his Barristan Selmy moment, where he's just taking off the armor. Are you going to have me walk naked through the streets or what is it? But that's not the fate that Tommen wants for his uncle father.
No, Tommen says to Jamie, now you've served your family and you've served the throne or the crown. and you're going to continue to do so, just not here.
Yeah, now, did Jamie really serve the crown faithfully? I mean, he killed one king himself. He let another king die on his watch, even though it wasn't really his fault. And then he like tried to go behind the king's back to basically create violence in the streets of King's Landing. This does not sound like the actions of somebody who is serving his king faithfully. Now, I know it sounds like I'm being a little bit hard on Jamie, and I don't intend to be because I do like his character, but we do have to realize within the context of the story that both he and Cersei are not nearly as intelligent, wise, or as cunning as Tywin Lannister, and they're just lesser children of a great father who would have handled this situation with great ease, I believe.
Oh my gosh, I think if Tywin Lannister was still around, they wouldn't even be in this situation. Because, I mean, all of this is Cersei's doing. Is Cersei's the one who invited the militant in, the High Sparrow in, and all of this. It was another one of her plans that just completely blew up in her face. And I think if Tywin was still around, it would have been squashed and extinguished. He would have, just waved him away like a fly. It would have been nothing. He would have gotten rid of it from the get go. We find out that Tommen wants Jamie to head to the Riverlands.
Well, we get that introduction because uh, we get that introduction after we see Walder Frey back on screen. This season's like a
Yeah,
reunion.
right. A horrible reunion at the site of the Red Wedding.
Yeah, and apparently the Freys have lost River Run to the Blackfish, so Littlefinger's intelligence checks out, and it looks like the Freys are now desperate to take back River Run, and they have called upon Jaime Lannister to help out.
Which is really interesting because we've got other people that are headed down to River Run right now as well. We have Brienne that's heading down to the River Run. She's supposed to be going down to meet with the Blackfish, or meet with the Tullys, and ask them to come and rally with Sansa up in the north. But then there's a fight headed towards the Tullys led by Jaime Lannister. So we potentially have a conflict with Brienne against Jaime.
And you literally have Brienne and Podrick heading towards a confrontation. Well, potentially a confrontation with Jaime Lannister and Bronn, which is interesting considering that these two characters saw each other off a couple years ago when Brienne got Oathkeeper and set out to protect the Stark girls. So everything's kind of come full circle.
Yeah, I think the next episode or two are going to be really interesting to see if that reunion happens. Um,
Oh, and can we talk about Walder Frey's plan to try to get River Run back with Edmure?
yeah, and actually, just before that, I was going to mention that there was something that his two sons were mentioning of some of the reasons why Walder Frey was just so confused. How do you lose a castle? It's not losing a goat or it's not losing cattle or anything. It's a castle. How do you lose it? And they are giving him all sorts of excuses as to different things that have happened and occurred. And one of the things that really kind of perked my interest is that we hear about the Brotherhood without banners, and we have not heard about them in a really long time either.
We haven't heard from them in a while. I think it was in season 3. That's when we're introduced to Thoros of Myr, Beric Dondarrion, the entire idea of resurrecting somebody from the dead by the Red God. So we know from this episode and this moment that the Brotherhood is still out there. Wonder what that could mean. Maybe there's some new leadership in the Brotherhood. Who knows? I have a feeling we might find out.
Yeah, if you're not a book reader, which I am not, but I have leapt headfirst into uh, book lore to kind of fill in some of the gaps of things that have not appeared on the show. And one of the most interesting storylines that I think book readers and casual watchers like myself have really been interested in seeing is something that involves the Brotherhood without banners and the Riverlands and another character that we haven't seen in a while, tied to the phrase as well, and the Red Wedding. And it seems as if there are all these elements that are kind of coming together. These breadcrumbs are being laid out. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, all the pieces are in place. I'll say that. The pieces are there. I mean, it's just a question of whether or not the showrunners are trolling the audience again, which they've done before, intentionally so.
Yeah, I would like it to happen, but I'm kind of afraid that its time has passed, that its expiration date has come and gone already, that, too little too late to add it in there. So maybe they're just kind of throwing in those little breadcrumbs just to throw out some red herrings. I'm not sure. I would love to see it happen, but I don't know if it really will. I don't really think it will. But I'm open to being wrong. I would like to be wrong.
So this Walder Frey plan to use Edmer to get the Blackfish to give up River Run, this has no chance, right? Like, I Edmer's a schmuck, and the Blackfish doesn't really like him all that much. I know that family is family, but I don't think the Blackfish is the type that's gonna, really care what happens to Edmer.
I feel bad for the guy. He was well though so if anybody who's as a casual show watcher that maybe doesn't realize who this person is that they just brought out in chains, back at the Red Wedding was supposed to be the wedding of Robb Stark to one of Walder Frey's daughters of his choosing. And that doesn't happen. Robb actually gets married to I don't remember her name, but she's like a nurse. She was highborn, but she was a nurse on the battlefield, and he, fell in love with her, and screw the pact that my mom and I made with the phrase to pass through this land. We're gonna go get married, and I'm gonna offer up my mom. Was it his uncle? Is it Catelyn's brother? Is that who Edmure is?
Yeah, it's Rob's uncle. Rob's wife was Talisa.
Thank you.
And just to kind of go back there on that. And the Red Wedding was Edmer's wedding. I mean, that was it. It
Yes.
was Edmer's wedding to one of the Frey daughters, and did not go too well for Edmer, although he did do better than most of the people that were at that wedding.
Well, we were to believe that things went well. I mean, we found out that um, when when all of the daughters were being presented to Rob, they didn't look very promising. But then there was one daughter that's presented that is kind of cute, and Edmer seems to be okay. This will be fine for me. I'll go ahead and take one for the team. And they seem to have a great wedding, and they're gonna go consummate their wedding. And the last we knew, they were being carried off into the what is it
Betting ceremony.
the bedding ceremony. So we assumed that everything was going to be fine. So apparently it wasn't, because he looks like he's been in chains for quite a while. So, but according to Walder Frey, he's not to worry because he's going home.
Yeah, and another kind of odd little detail that I noticed about that scene. Did you notice the girl next to Walder Frey, who I think is one of his daughters, who he kind of, like spanks while he's talking when he gets upset?
Yeah, her poor look on her face. I felt horrible for her.
I did too. And I have maybe a little tiny feeling that we might see that person's face again.
Really? What makes you
I
say that?
do. I think that is Chekhov's Spank. I think we will come back to that character in particular. Kind of.
Okay.
That's a pretty good tease, right? I just teased
Is that
something.
is that like a book thing, or is this just a feeling in your gut?
No, not at all. It is a feeling in my gut. Um,
You're not going to go any
that,
further into that?
let's see. I'm trying to think of a way to dance around this.
No, let's give it.
Okay. That girl is awfully close to Walder Frey.
Yes.
I mean, if someone were to infiltrate the Frey household, perhaps maybe even look like her in appearance, it would be awfully easy to get close to Walder to maybe strike a killing blow.
Oh, I think I see what you're putting down.
Now, this could be completely crazy, but I've got more crazy theories coming your way in this episode, so
Okay, okay. So,
remember the spank.
how could I forget? So, let's see. The next location that we're heading across to Bravos, and we see a we see a depiction of the Purple Wedding, by our lovely mummers group. And I love this scene because we see the Purple Wedding, we see the killing, or the death of Joffrey Lannister, Joffrey and Baratheon,
Baratheon.
not Lannister.
What?
What? Oh, but he's wearing, although in the show he is wearing a lion on his chest. He's not wearing a stag. I'll just leave it at that.
He is. That's
Um,
pretty funny, actually.
and I love that this is happening, and Arya is the only one in the audience that's laughing.
Yeah, Arya, she wasn't there to see it live, but now she's got it on DVR and she's enjoying it. The Essos version of The Daily Show is at it again.
Yes. So we see Lady Crane, who is Arya's target. We see her give a very moving, very touching monologue, as she's cradling the actor that's playing Joffrey. There's a great shot over her shoulder where you can see the actress that's playing Sansa, who we believe is the one who's paid off um, the faceless men to take out Lady Crane. And she's standing there and she's watching it very intently. And she's mouthing the lines. So she wants that role so badly. So we see Arya head backstage and she deposits the poison into the rum while they're having their curtain call. All the actors then come off stage, and Lady Crane sees Arya and she realizes, she's like, wait a minute. I recognize you. I've seen you out in the audience before. How many times have you been here? So I've been here 3 times. And she kind of, for whatever reason, she sees something in Arya, and she kind of takes her under her wing and kind of tells her a little story about herself and how she got involved in being an actress. And I thought that was a really sweet, endearing moment. And I think Arya was completely captivated and endeared by it as well.
After her and Lady Crane have this conversation, what's really interesting about it to me is that we almost see some empathy come from Arya when she's trying to explain to Lady Crane why she should change the lines. And it is a really, really interesting moment. You had some thoughts on this, I know. So do you want to talk about them? Now, this again, just to kind of set it up, this is when Arya and Lady Crane are talking. Lady Crane says she hates the dialogue that she has. Arya tells her to change it, and she says, "How would you change it?" And then Arya kind of tells her a few things. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, there's this whole exchange between Lady Crane and Arya, I think, is really, really weighted. I think there's a lot more meaning behind Arya's words than just their face value. Lady Crane does. She asks her, "Well, how would you change it?" And Arya says, "Well, I don't think Cersei would just sit there and cry." They're talking about the scene where she's cradling Joffrey, and Lady Crane knows that there's something wrong with this scene, and Arya says, she wouldn't sit there and cry. Her son was taken from her before she could say goodbye. She wouldn't just sit there and cry. She would be angry. She would be angry and she would want to kill the person who did this. And I think in that moment she has a spark of realization, that she realizes that there's kind of a connection between her and Cersei. And I know that sounds really strange, but hear me out, because I think she sees the parallel between Cersei and Joffrey, and herself and Arya and her father, where this situation happened with her father. Her father was taken from her before she could say goodbye. She was out, if you remember, at the beginning of, or at the end of season one. Arya was out playing in the streets, and she didn't even know that this was happening. And she hears that there's a crowd gathering, and then she goes and sees that her father is, has his head on the block, and she climbs up above the audience, and she sees her father get beheaded. Spoiler alert. And um,
Ned Stark dies.
yes,
What?
and so the way that she says Cersei should be portrayed, I think, is exactly how she felt about the happenings with her father, that he was taken before she had a chance to say goodbye. She didn't cry, which she didn't in the show. She didn't cry at all. She got angry, and she wanted to kill the person who did it. And Joffrey was on her list, Cersei was on her list. Um, and at that moment, the actress asks her, what's your name? She says, my name is Mercy. And again, I think that is very weighted, because in that moment, she decides to give mercy to the actress and to not allow her to be killed. And I think it's very telling that she says, I have to, or the actress asks her, do you like pretending to be other people? Which Arya, that's a double meaning for Arya. The actress is saying it as if, oh, you like coming to see these plays, as an actress, you pretend to be other people. Is that what you like? But with Arya, she's being tested. She's being tested to portray other people, as a faceless man and as no one. And, when she asks her, do you like to portray other people? She doesn't say yes. She doesn't say no. She says, I have to go. My father is waiting for me. And I think that is so telling, because at that moment, I believe that's when she made the decision that she's going to go back and be Arya. She's going to go back and be herself, and she's going to go back and be a Stark. And after that scene, that's when we see her go back and get Needle. So that's what I
Yeah,
took from that
and
scene,
well,
and I
yeah.
love it.
I think you're 100% spot on. I think in that conversation, she does find maybe not sympathy, maybe some empathy for Cersei, which is odd because, again, she's kind of, working with these actors who, are kind of de facto replacements for the real life counterparts. And what I'm curious is, what are we getting at with the Arya storyline and the list? The Arya list is a very critical part of her character, but we know that this list can be changed. Names get added to it, names get taken off. She doesn't get to kill everybody on our list. I wonder if this list will take on less meaning or what the overall value of it is going to be moving forward, because as we see, she knocks the shot glass out of Lady Crane's hand. She decides she's not going to go ahead and do it, and I do love the way she looks at the actress who plays Sansa, points at her and says, watch this one, she wants you dead.
Hmm.
And then she just bails, which is a great mic drop moment.
Yeah, it was. And then after her mic drop moment, we see the camera kind of pans over a little bit, and we see that the waif has been there and has observed this entire thing.
The waif is like prop master on this play. I don't know how she gets back there, but what was funny is as you see the waif and you recognize her, I was actually looking in the background to watch the characters how they were like interacting with each other. After the reveal that one of them wanted to kill another one, and they're just all standing there. They're all like frozen in shock.
They don't realize the camera's still on them. They're still in the shot. So the waif, after observing all of this, after observing that uh, Arya has not gone through with her task. In fact, she's even revealed, uh, what we believe to be the person that, had the hit out on Lady Crane. She reports back to Jaqen Hagar and lets him know that she has not passed. And Jaqen just really seems unfazed by it. Like he has no emotion over anything. That's too bad. She had some good talent. She had some gifts. Oh well.
Yeah,
Big deal.
the dynamics of the faceless men are very strange to me. And like I still even haven't even given up the possibility that maybe this whole thing is a test. Maybe she wasn't supposed to kill Lady Crane. Maybe she's supposed to kill the waif, and this whole thing is just one big mind fuck. Who knows? I don't think it's going that way, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did. What I really am trying to wrap my head around is the entire um, is how this entire plot line serves Arya's character. That to me is the big question. What does she take from her time at the House of Black and White? Does she literally take something? Like, does she just take a bunch of faces and bail? Does she bring down the entire, organization from the inside? Does she kill the waif? Does she kill Jaqen? Does she kill everybody else in the building? I don't know really where this is going. So I'm interested to find out, but I'm glad to see the storyline starting to wrap up.
Well, I definitely think there's going to be some kind of a confrontation between the waif and Arya. It looks like after Arya grabbed Needle, she's hiding out somewhere in some kind of under a bridge somewhere or something. I have no idea where she's at. I don't think she went back to the House of the Black and White at all. Um, but the waif has, apparently her and Jaqen had some kind of a bet or something going on because she's like, you promised me, and he says, just make sure she doesn't suffer. So it sounds to me like she's been given the go ahead to go ahead and kill Arya. So there's going to be some kind of a pursuit or confrontation there. But then what happens afterwards? Who knows? I assume Arya is going to kill the waif, and I would love to see her just somehow take down the entire House of Black and White. Would be really cool.
We still haven't seen that roof jump that was prominently featured in the trailer, so my hunch is that might happen sooner than later, huh?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see something like that really soon. I don't know. I don't know if we'll see it in this next episode. I would say within the least the next one or two episodes, we'll see that, I think. Our last location that we have this episode is we catch back up with Danny and the Dothraki, and they are on the move. Looks like Danny's finally doing some planning beyond Essos.
Yeah, some on the nose dialogue here, maybe a little too much so, where her and Dario are talking like, how long do we get to Marine? 7 days. Hey, guess what? Another episode of Game of Thrones airs in 7 days. How many ships do I need to get to Westeros? You need 1,000 ships. Exactly 1,000, no more, no less. Well, wouldn't it be great if somebody on this show would build 1,000 ships? Oh yeah, you're on last week. Wink, wink. Remember? A little bit too on the nose with the dialogue in the scene, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. Um, so we know that Danny is getting close. Her plans are being made. Interestingly enough, Dario calls Daenerys a conqueror, which is something that might suggest that Daenerys is maybe not the hero of this story, or maybe that she'll have a problem when it comes to actually ruling, but be great at the conquering part.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. Well, I'm not sure what the end game with her is going to be. I know that she just seems to want to take everything, but then once you take it, what are you going to do with it? Kind of kind of reminds me of some of our elections over here and some of the campaigns that we have going on where it seems like a lot of the people are just in it to win it, and then they don't really have any concrete plans for anything. They just want to win a contest. So she's already proven to us that she's not great at the political side of it. I think that's definitely when she's at her weakest. Is when she took over Marine, and she was holding court, and she was bored and she was uncomfortable, and she was almost like a caged animal. And she was kind of like her caged dragons. She's better when she's, unchained and flying around. So, um, and that makes me think that, having Tyrion by her side is going to be really good because he's a good political strategist, and he's, a much better ambassador than she is. She's a good figurehead and she's a good conqueror. Um, but how is that really going to work out? I have no idea.
Well, we do then get to see Danny kind of run off on her own. A little bit of time goes by, and all of a sudden, we see those wings flying, and Drogon is back with Danny in the saddle.
Oh my gosh. Such an amazing moment. He's gotten huge. He's huge. He's about
Yeah,
the
he's
size,
enormous.
yeah, he's about the size of like a 747 or something. And you just see him appear, and he kind of does this banking turn, and you just see this little splotch of white, silvery white on his back, and you realize, "Oh my gosh, she's riding on him." And she lands, and they really got the animation right on this time. It looked fantastic, and she's giving a big pep talk to rally all of the Dothraki together. She's making her pledge. The episode title is Blood of My Blood, and if I remember correctly, um, we've heard those words before. That is part of the oath, I guess you could call it, of the call to his chosen blood riders. She mentioned something that a call chooses three blood riders, uh, and she's decided she's not going to do that. She's going to choose all of them instead of three. So she's going to have hundreds of thousands or thousands of blood riders instead. And to be a blood rider in the Dothraki, again, if I remember correctly, that's kind of you are like the royal guard almost. You're kind of like that's like their version of the king's guard, but and again, it's for life, just like the king's guard is in King's Landing. Um, but I think the stakes of this one are a little higher. That if something happens to the call, if they die, are they supposed to die with the call, or they're supposed to take their own life, or it's just they follow their leader to death? I think I remember that somewhere. Can you correct me
That
if I'm
might have
wrong?
been way back in book one. I honestly don't remember because it's been a little bit of time.
Ah,
That sounds more right than not. If people are shouting at their speakers right now, go ahead and let us know on the Twitter and the Facebook.
yeah, that would be really cool if you could, get in touch with us. We have a lot of different ways for you to do that. Um, as Nick just said, we do have Twitter. It's NerdFlixChill on Twitter and on Facebook. And then also, if you're listening to us, chances are you're listening to us through iTunes. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star review, or leave us a review altogether would be great. We really want your feedback. We want to know how we're doing. This is our third episode, and would like to know, what are we doing right? What do you think we have to improve upon? And yeah, be interactive with us. We want to hear from you. If you have any questions, if you want to know our opinions on anything, that would be great too, because we would love to read your questions over the air as well.
So, a couple of other things here. I love the shot of Drogon when you can kind of see into his mouth, that final shot of the episode. I thought that was just terrific. I really, really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really great bit of CGI. I know the show got a little bit of criticism for Danny's flying off on Drogon in season five, but I honestly didn't have a problem with it. I thought this looked even better. Really love the way this looked. And to tie it into American elections, like how cool would it be if you saw like Hillary Clinton ride into the Democratic National Convention on the back of a dragon? Like, if you're going to give a rallying speech, you must use a dragon because you couldn't just do it like on horseback.
Well, I mean, granted, if I saw her ride in on horseback, I would still think that's pretty cool.
True. True. Like
Ah,
Trump would show up like Lady Elena. She would have like a, like a little carriage and
and a little
with a
fan,
big golden pompadour on top. Bernie Sanders would just show up like on his own like
like the High
horse.
Sparrow.
Yeah. He'd be pulling a wheelbarrow or something. Oh, one more
Yeah.
thing. I didn't get to throw my other crazy theory out there.
Oh yeah.
You
Let's
want to hear
hear
my
it.
other crazy
Of
theory? Okay,
course.
good. We were talking about Jamie and Cersei.
Yeah.
Jamie's heading to the Riverlands. Cersei knows that she's got her trial by combat coming up soon, and she's like super overconfident. It's like the classic, like Rocky movie overconfident. She's Apollo Creed. She thinks that, the mountain's just going to roll over everybody.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if there's a little bit of overconfidence here, and I wonder if, and this is crazy, so it probably won't happen, but what if in trial by combat, Cersei selects the mountain, which she will, but the Faith selects Tommen as their champion, and the mountain
What?
must then fight Tommen, which would mean that either way, Cersei loses. I know it's crazy,
It is
but it's kind of a neat
crazy.
idea.
So, so
Wouldn't
what
it be
would
the
be
like? Wouldn't it be the master stroke for the High Sparrow? Wouldn't that just be like the master move?
that would be a huge mind fuck for her. So, do you think that that's his end game is just to screw Cersei over? Like what would that other than giving her a loss either way, either she, loses her son, which has been prophesized that he's going to die somehow. So who knows how he's going to die?
Well,
Maybe
and
that way.
maybe if the High Sparrow thinks he has his claws on Marjorie, that he would be able to install her as queen, or even perhaps Lancel Lannister, who also has the Lannister name and could potentially be part of the um, lineage to claim the throne. I mean, honestly, if Tommen dies, I think you have like kind of a crisis of the monarchy here because no one can seem to provide a straight answer as to who would be king if Tommen dies. I've heard like several different podcasts mention it. I've heard YouTube videos that mention it, Reddit articles that mention it, and no two seem to agree as to who it would be. I've heard Cersei, I've heard Jamie, I've heard Kevin, I've heard Lancel, Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, Gendry. Who?
And who knows, maybe Gendry just magically appears. Uh I I don't know. I don't know what they would have to gain from that other than uh just messing with Cersei. I think that's an awesome twist because I think there is a fan um, theory as to who the mountain would face. Clegane
Yes.
Bowl! Woo!
Yes.
Get hype!
Yes. Yeah. I, as much as I want this to happen, as much as I would love to see those two face off, I don't want it to happen in a trial by combat. And I
Because
don't
that means one of
think
them's
it
gonna
will
die.
happen. Well, no, it means that you're, if you got the Clegane Bowl, you would be rooting for the Hound. You wouldn't be rooting for the Mountain. But to root for the Hound is to root for the High Sparrow.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah. But, I mean, if we're going to jump ahead now, so we've discussed the entire episode. If we want to jump ahead to scenes for the upcoming episode, episode 7, there's something in that little clip that makes me think that we might be seeing the Hound again.
Maybe. We know that we see some feet shuffling with a little bit of a limp, and it's right underneath the words "between the living and the dead." It's a line that Davos says in the preview. It's very interesting. Could be a reintroduction to our old friend, maybe not. Next week looks really, really crazy too. It looks so vast because you've got John, Davos, and Sansa at Bear Island. Then it looks like John and Tormund at wherever the wildlings are camped out in the on the gift, and then you've also got Sansa going to House Glover. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. Not to mention uh, Blackfish and Jamie squaring off too. So lots of stuff going on in next week's episode.
Yeah, overall, I thought this week's episode was really good. It wasn't as action packed as some of the episodes that we've had so far this season. This season's been fully loaded. But this one, even though it didn't have as much action, other than our opening scene with North of the Wall with Benjen and fighting the Whites, there's a lot that happened in this episode. There's a lot that's being set up for future episodes of this season. So even though it wasn't a lot of physical action, there was a lot of maneuvering that was happening with this episode.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen one more Danny scene just to kind of balance out the episode. I think that ending felt a little bit out of place in a way. It almost would have looked better tagged on to the last episode, like right before the Hodor stuff. But, again, all things considered, this was not my favorite episode of the season. However, when I look at something like Game of Thrones, I'm comparing it to the way that I would criticize a film. I hold it to a higher standard. It's not like I'm watching Arrow and I'm, judging those two things on the same criteria. I think that Game of Thrones is held to a higher standard because it consistently meets a higher standard. So, even though this one is not my favorite episode of the season, I still think it is as good as anything that we got in season 5.
Yeah, I agree. They're just continuing to knock it out, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens after this. Join us for next week. We'll be covering episode 7, The Broken Man. We'll be reviewing that one as well. Stay tuned because it's not going to be just Game of Thrones. And I would love, we mentioned before how there's different ways for you to get in touch with us. Let us know some things that you would like us to review. Nick and I have discussed some things that we thought would be great. We've talked about going to see Suicide Squad when that comes out, possibly reviewing some of the Marvel Universe that we have on Netflix. And, of course, we've got some more Marvel movies that are coming out in the theaters later this year. And, of course, Star Wars as well. But if you have any suggestions outside of Game of Thrones that you would like us to cover, we are definitely open to that. So get in touch with us on Twitter, which again is NerdFlixChill on Twitter and on Facebook. And give us some reviews, suggestions, questions. We want to hear from you.
That is correct. Everything you said.
I agree. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Bye.